Good evening, everyone, and welcome to When the Shift Hits the Fan. My name's Mark Jeffrey, and I'm here again this week with my co-host Linda Lehman. And actually, this week, the shift really did hit the fan. I was in for a shift that I wasn't expecting, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And I might have a little bit of a rant going on, so little children, plug your ears. What happened was this past month we had the opportunity to go to the National Cancer Symposium. And I had a talk that I did there, and that was really exciting for me. And I got a lot of feedback in the question and answer period of this. And I want to talk about that at some point. But there was something that happened later that's where my shift kind of happened. And something that I think is critical that we talk about, because it goes beyond cancer. It goes beyond whether or not the human race, humankind, will even actually survive. And what's happening behind the scenes that none of us, you, me, most of us are not even privy to, because we're not walking in those circles. I happened to go out to dinner with a genetic scientist, a genetic engineer, and some kind of food and drug, buddy of his, that goes with the modification and genetically modifying our food, and how they think that all of this is something that's really important to have happen in whether or not we're going to be able to eat. And it was interesting because I thought it all the way through. And this is my shift, and I'm going to kind of start with my shift, and then we'll come back to the conversation. What happened was I started thinking through what is going on, the facts that I personally know, and we all know. Okay, so we all know that girls are coming into puberty much sooner than what they should be and what they're even emotionally equipped to do. We know that men, boys, some of them are not even getting through puberty properly. They are staying in I'm not a scientist here, but I say in a feminine state. So, and the rise in male infertility is dramatic. And the amount of children being born is being lessened. And because of all of this, women are waiting till longer and then finding out they can't have children. And same thing with the men. So we got this paradox happening where if you travel down that road, and I want to say right now, I do not have anything against anyone who is gay, lesbian. I mean, that's got nothing to do with this. This is what's happening genetically to us. And this is in talking to these genetic scientists, because that's what interested me the most about this whole symposium. I didn't even care what I was going to say. I wanted to hear what they were saying about this and what they were doing about it. And this really concerned me, because I thought if we travel down that road and we have everyone going to these kinds of relationships because they're genetically being pushed in that way, what happens? What happens? We have no babies, right? There's nobody having the babies, so the human race can't go on. Now, is this going to happen today or tomorrow? Probably not, but I see it at a very fast pace, because I'm looking at stuff, Linda, like when I was young, I didn't have any autism or any of these strange things that are happening now, and I can only attribute that to what we're eating. It's all coming down to food sources. Of course, we're talking about cancer a lot, and a lot of that is genetics, but genetics why, right? In the 1950s is when we started tampering with food, okay? That's when all of this started happening, in the 1950s, and that's in the era that I was born. And so my food started getting changed when I was young, before, in that time frame. And it's only increased. And now we're seeing all of these changes in children and infertility and deformities and just different things that we're seeing now today that if we travel down that road, we're not going to be able to survive it. And so these guys are talking about genetic engineering is going to have to be something that they will have to do because of all of this. And modifying the food, as far as everyone is concerned in the scientific community, is a perfect solution to things. So their side of this is the fact that we are weaker human beings. Now I'm going to raise my hand. I'm going to say I believe that. I believe that we're not the same tough stock that my grandparents and great-grandparents are. I mean, we become flesh, unhealthy human beings. And why? We go right back to the food, right? There's nothing else. Yeah, we can say some of it is environmental because we've become into the industrialization age and stuff like that. But that's not all. I mean, this is a huge concern to me. I mean, I was jumping up and down with my fork and my knife in my hand going, what? You know, how can you allow this to be happening? And why aren't we, as a people, as a humankind, doing something about it? And they're going, well, you know, you can't because it's been tried. And an example was China. Now, China, you know, it was one-child family and everybody wanted boys. And so we traveled down that road. Now what happened? There's no girls, so there's no one for these guys to mate with. Now they're looking at, well, now how do we solve this problem? So, Linda, I was just blown away by this conversation. And that's why all of a sudden what I had to say and how I felt, it really didn't matter to me. I wanted to know more. And now it's taken me on a whole different trajectory about what I want to know and how it can be fixed and how me as a person can do something or anything about it. Now we know that we can do something about it, but will we? Right? That's the big thing, because we know that we've made food manufacturers change how they manufacture food. We've done that because we did not accept it. Fructose corn syrup, now that's the big bad word out there from the dietitians and doctors. So what are they doing now? They're replacing that with something else, another genetically modified whatever. I talk about soy. And when we look at this, we were just given such a bill of goods. I went hype. My thyroid went out of whack because when I had cancer treatments, I was pushed through menopause. So they said, well, you know, this is going to help your body adjust. So I was on the soy bandwagon doing everything I could to help my little body, to then find out that, well, you got hypothyroidism. And I'm going, well, how the hell did that happen? So I'm not going to take that line down. I'm going to find out why. Why all the soy? Oh, okay. So what do? I do more research on it, and I find out that in Asia, yeah, they have a little bit of miso, but they don't have a gallon of it at Starbucks. They don't put it in their ice cream. They don't even care about tofu. In fact, if you were to actually look at tofu, it's not even soy anymore. It's so manufactured. So we get sold a bill of goods in the Western world, and we actually accept it. And stuff that we hear about, oh, this little tribe in the Amazon that is healthy and never has any cancer, and they pick one stupid-ass thing that these people are doing and then sell it to us. And normally, when they sell it to us, it comes into a package, right? Mm-hmm. It's not real food. I started doing more research on what is real food, and there isn't any. There really isn't any. I'm going to tell you something else. People are worried about gluten, and it's one of the things that came off my list in our cancer protocol. But really, why worry about gluten? Because look at that loaf of bread that does not get mold on it for 2 weeks sitting on your counter. I'd be more worried about what the hell does that than any gluten that might be in the bread. Linda, help me out here. What say you?
Wow. No.
I know, hey?
Yeah. This is a very serious problem, you know, and I started, as you were talking, I was just thinking back, and, you know, genetically, looking at my grandparents, my grandparents, both sets lived into their 90s. They were farmers. They grew their own food. They raised their own stock. Even as they were growing their own food, they were taking some of the crops and harvesting the seeds to plant the next year's crop. So it wasn't like they were going to a mill or anything and purchasing all of these seeds, which may or may not have been tampered with. But I can also tell you, as a society, just kind of fast forward a few years, when things started being packaged to where it was more convenient. Instead of having to spend 2 hours prior to dinner making the meal, all of a sudden things started coming in packages. And the advent of the Twinkie even, that lasts forever, right? Because it's so full of preservatives. And I look at my own children, and growing up, we thought that chicken was a really good thing to give them. But again, Mark, the chicken that we were buying at the grocery store and trusting that it was good was injected with all these hormones to make the product bigger and more appealing, which in turn injected hormones into my children. And you were right. They developed earlier.
And what with that too? Here's the thing that I can't stop. Right, I'm on fire right now because we have agencies in place that are supposed to protect us, right? So you would think, right, Linda, that you could go to the store and know and believe that someone said, you know what, this is safe for my children, and that's why you bought it.
Yeah, but that's
wasn't
not
safe at all.
That's not where the money is.
No.
They started injecting animals and putting stuff into grains and seeds because it produced a bigger crop, and so therefore they got more money for it.
Yep. And here's the other thing too. We talked about this. I'm trying to find an orange, right? Well, and here, I'll go back one more step. When I was little, right, I think my choices was an apple or an orange. There wasn't all of these exotic fruits from other countries, right? You got what was grown here. And if they were out of season, you were just pretty much out of luck if you didn't do some canning, right? I think we did get peaches because we have, the Okanagan here and that over the summertime. I remember that. But really, I didn't have all of these exotic things. Now when I go to the store, it's funny because I happen to say that on, I think, Facebook, like I'm trying to find an orange that was in North America. Can somebody help me here? And it was funny how many people went to the store and said, oh my God, you're right. They're from North Africa. And I'm going, okay, let's look at this logically, right? How long did it take them to get from there to here? And what condition were they there? And what did they stick on them? Like, there's there's nothing that preserves us people.
Right.
They just import this stuff.
This discussion with the genetic engineer and the other scientists, it sounded like they were telling you, everything is genetically engineered now, so now they're trying to come up with some other artificial something to give us as humans to counteract the artificial garbage that's already out there?
I don't. You know what? And I don't even really believe or think that is it. They're thinking, well, okay. My thinking is, I don't want to go in that direction. Their thinking is this: if we're going in that direction, then we're going to have genetically modified babies. They're going to have to be grown in a petri dish because we can't. So they're not looking at fixing this. We are going in that direction, and we are going to have something that's going to be in place when we get there. But, we're just not sustainable at any rate, because if we were to be a statistician, right, or whatever, statistician.
Yes.
Right. If we were to be that person, then we would know numbers of, when people are having children and how many people there are and all of this stuff, right? But we're not privy to that. I mean, I can only look and see what's happening with my daughter and her friends and them being almost 30 years old and no prospects in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, okay, have you thought that maybe you're not going to be at 40 years old or 35 years old? Are you thinking that maybe you might not be able to have children? But they're telling me, these two guys, these scientists, saying, well, that won't be the problem. Most of the male population has become infertile at 25 and 30. They've never seen statistics like this ever. And guess what? That includes years where we've gone through the plague.
Well, so instead of putting the focus on bringing our food source back to its natural state, they're focusing on how do we reproduce the human population unnaturally.
Exactly. Because we're urbanized as well. Let's look at the United States. You being more familiar than I am. But the southern part of where I live is pretty much a dust bowl. And if we go back way many, the bazillion years ago, we were the bottom of a lake at some point. And so we don't have a lot of ground layer, like earth layer. And there's more winds, there's less cover in the wintertime, so it doesn't keep the ground there, and so the soil is becoming sandier, less nutrient-like. I know there's a lot of places in the United States that's suffering huge drought. Some are getting, of course, rained out, and but the places that need to grow this are seeing drought-like conditions. So the powers that be would go, well, if we can't grow this food in this time frame or in this space, we're going to have to grow it faster in some other space. And instead of trying to work with the farmers that are actually here, it's, well, let's go to North Africa. I mean, it's cheap over there, cheap labor. They've got land over there still. Let's go over there and we'll help them, grow their crops, and then we'll ship it back here. And organic farmers, there's lots of them out there. But and people say to me, well, I can't buy organic because it's too expensive. I'm going, well, what is your life worth? I mean, seriously, because you can't even guarantee that tomato that you're getting from the store is a real tomato. It might look and feel like a tomato, but it's probably not a tomato from seed. It's interesting how somebody told me that the other day. They said, when you cut open some of these tomatoes that you're getting, see how many seeds there are. When you get those nice, plump, juicy, vined tomatoes, and they just got all those seeds and juice in them? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, look at some of them that you get in the stores. Go cutting them open. They're pink, hard flesh with hardly any seeds. Real or not? And how would I know? Because nobody has to label it.
Right.
And if they do label it, guess what these guys say? It'd have to be 95% modified before you would have to put any kind of warning on it.
95%?
95%. Okay, look at it. Soy. I mean, that's a prime example. I hate to pick on soy, but it's a prime example of what you think is soy. It's labeled as soy, isn't it? Tofu had less than 2% soy in it.
Wow.
It's called a soy product, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is.
Mm-hmm. So all these people running around eating it, thinking that they're doing their body good, and eating vegetables and thinking they're doing their body good, are being injected with all of these chemicals and genetic DNA. And then I started thinking again down that road, going, okay, if I'm eating genetically engineered whatever it is, how can anybody guarantee that it's not genetically engineering me the same way? Because we know, just like you said, Linda, the hormones, right? We know what that did. I mean, it's a fact. How can anybody hide from that?
Right. So I guess the next question then is, what should we do, or what can we do as a human race to get totally up in arms and start reversing all of this genetically engineered crap that we're being fed?
Well, I think the first thing that I know what I'm doing, and I don't know what anybody else will do, but the first thing I'm doing is I'm doing the With 100 Miles of Where I Live food source. And I'm going to go organic. Now, this took me a while to do, and I'm still working on things. Now, a couple of things happened. I couldn't have all the things I wanted to have. Okay? That's just the way it is. If stuff came in from another country, well, and that's the only fresh fruit there was, I just couldn't have it. I just would have to eat the apples all week long because you're not having oranges. I decided that I went looking. We have a farmer's market here in the summertime, so I went and talked to every one of the vendors, to the organic ones. And here's what happened is we got a little movement going on because the Hutterite colony here has their own canning and produce, you know, how they manufacture and freeze for themselves. So we're getting together and saying, if we got you food from our organic farmers and that here, would you, say if I had 20 people or 30 people, if we could bring it to you, would you then process it for them and put it, like freeze it or do whatever you need to do without any kind of preservatives or anything and get them back to them because of the winter? We can't just walk out and get an orange off a tree or berries because we're coming into winter here. So 100 kilometers or 100 miles from where I live, that would be zero food except for maybe icicles, right? So I had to say, what can I do in the time frame I have? And I decided that I would also have to go outside of that for this year for sure because I started too late to kind of have a stock up of the berries and things that I've been buying all summer. I had nowhere, you know, you can do, I can't can. I'm just not good at it. And I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to have to find somebody that can do it for me. But I also have to get that fruit and take it to someone who I also can trust, that you're an organic farmer, that you're going to can it or freeze it without doing weird things to it. So I'm in control a little bit. And I'm just going to start talking about it. I'm going to talk about it to everybody that I can talk to about it, like on our show. And I know we're running over here. This is going to have to be a two-parter for sure, because I'm going to start doing some research. I have already, but everybody can do this. You've got organic farmers that are around you. And where you live, Linda, I mean, you got better weather. Anybody that's got, you know, in a sunshine state should be able to, you know, garner this. But there's things I will never eat again. I'll never have soy. I will never have corn. I'll never trust another tomato unless I can grow it. We're looking at another project, a friend of mine, in talking to it. There's indoor greenhouses that you can get that aren't very big. They're apartment size, that you can actually grow things all year round. And you just keep doing what your grandfather did, harvesting the seeds, replanting the seeds. I'm doing that. I'm going to do that.
Excellent. Excellent. And you know what? With an indoor greenhouse like you're talking about, you'll be feeding less of the critters. We fed the protected beech mice for 2 years, all but 2 or 3 of our tomatoes that we were growing ourselves because they liked them so much.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. You're gonna, you know, it's a simple thing. It looks like a little teepee, and you know, there's a way. And I'm gonna research it. I'm gonna get it up on our website. So if somebody wants to go ahead and try it, It's not just for herbs. You can grow almost anything indoors, but it will take you 2 years because, again, you have to get it, you have to harvest the seeds, and it's not that easy. But I'm committed to me not having to be genetically modified at some point in my life. I wish I could get my daughter involved. I'm going to really push her for that. But you know what? It's just like we're going along going, no, if they put it in the stores, it's got to be safe, Mom. How can you, like we're just going into brain dead kids that are going to be having to have genetically modified babies in order for the humankind to be sustained. Maybe that's why the aliens are waiting before they land here. Let's just wait till they get to the point there, and then we'll come in and clean that one up. It's a big deal. And it's not something that we can challenge or even come to any solution on a half-hour show. And maybe we're just going to have to talk more about it. And I think it's that important. I just really do.
No, I agree with you, Martha. It's incredibly important. It's our survival. I mean, people have been asking the questions for years and years without. I think they've been asking the questions but afraid to see the answers.
Yep.
And when we ask why are we having such a larger incidence of obesity and cancer and heart disease, yet they're not listening for the answer because the answer is right in front of our face, and it's genetically
engineered. It's our food.
Mm-hmm.
It's our food source. Yeah. And can I stem the tide all by myself? No, but people need to start getting. We had a revolution. I mean, the days of Woodstock and people. But you know what? I just find that more people are just going, no, you know what? It's got to be safe. That's the naysayers. That's the doom and gloom people. That's the end is near. Wacko people on the corner. Well, you know what? I have something to tell you. The end isn't near. It is actually here. And it's going to be a long, slow, painful death. And I am the most positive person about life. And I guess that's why I'm up in arms and angry that somebody could sit at a dinner table eating their genetically modified steak and tell me that's the way it's going to be, little girl. Deal with it.
Wow. So how did you leave that dinner that evening?
That was like, I challenge you. It was more about personally, this is exactly what I said, pretty much, is that I can't stop you in where you're going because you're just too big for me. That's like I'll be here in Brockovich if I have to be. I'll do that. I don't have a problem with that. I'll dedicate my life to doing that. But I realize that it's really out. It's gone so far because I was blind to it too. I believe that couldn't be happening. But here I am, and I'm going to tell you something. I know we're over time, and I apologize to everybody. But when I was little, we used to drive by the fields here in my hometown, and I would ask my dad what they were. They're yellow. He said, that's mustard seed. Okay? Now it's not. It's called canola. It's a genetically modified mustard seed. And this happened over my lifetime. But I still kept telling my daughter, well, it's mustard seed. And then somewhere along the line, I saw canola. And I'm going, well, is that the same thing? And I was just told, well, we couldn't call it rapeseed because of rape. And so we called it canola. It's a genetically modified. It is not even real. It's not even real. Just because it's a plant. Here's the thing. I had to get this through my head. It's a plant, so it has to be real. No, it doesn't. Because it grows doesn't mean that it's real. It's not a real plant from nature. It's a genetically modified something. That's not a plant.
Very interesting things that you leave us with to think about, Ms. Mark.
Well, it certainly was the same for me because I couldn't sleep. I wanted to do more. I wanted to talk more. I wanted to know more. And that's what I've come home to do. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to change the world. Maybe not yet. I'm certainly going to try. and I am going to do things differently in my own life. And everybody I touch, I'm going to try and change their mind too. You know, I already have 5 people in this group, and we have more people coming on because they're doing the same thing to get more people to go with this process. And again, we're a little bit behind the mark because we started too late in the season, but we're gearing up for next year. So I'm thinking, what if I have 100 or 200 or 500 by next summer? What if I have my whole hometown? That's all that I'm going to do. That's what I'm doing. I don't know what anybody else is going to do, but I'm going to do what I can. Because I know.
You start doing what you can, and then other people are jumping on board, and it becomes easier and easier to start actually growing and eating healthy food, real food.
Mm-hmm. Yep, just like all you can start with is trying to find things in the grocery store that are within 100 kilometers or 100 miles of where you live. Stay away from the 7 things, the sugars, the breads, like the gluten, the soy, the corn, you know, those things. Stay away from them and do something different. You know, everybody that I got, they all got juicers. We've all got our little recipes and we're doing it, but every single person is loving this. Like, it's like the cookie recipe club is now the juicing recipe club. I have a girl that has MS and is really suffering from it, and she's only been juicing for 2 weeks. And she could barely walk. Her husband, my friend, had to go and, you know, get her because she fell on the floor and couldn't get up. And guess what? In 2 weeks, she's stronger. 2 weeks.
2 weeks, that's awesome.
What do you think is going to happen in a year? Like, I'm just so excited.
You know, when we give our bodies the right tools, they can heal themselves. But if we clog them down too much with stuff that's not recognizable, that's where we have issues.
Well, that's it. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, you know, how many, like, when you go on that perspective, right? I mean, I have a friend that, you know, he's talking about, you know, the air trails from the airplanes and that's, you know, stuff that we're being dusted on. Well, I don't know about that, right? But I have a mind that I would think about it and I would look at it. But here's what I do know. I have a vehicle that I wash, and the next morning, even though it has not rained, right, just the dew point in the air, is filthy dirty. Now, here's 2 things. I don't live in a highly industrialized area whereby that could be smog or industrialized stuff. I live out in the country, right? What the hell is that? And where is it coming from? And it's more and more every year that goes by. Interesting. What's going on out there?
Very interesting.
Yeah, but I'm curious enough to start looking at ways to change. And I know that I'm not going to change everybody. Some people are going to laugh at me and say, you are right out of your mind. And I get that. All I know is what I heard, and the arrogance and the definitive thought process that these scientists have, and they are the ones that are putting forth this food, these drugs to the FDA and all of the health commissions all across the world. Sweden's another one. They're going to be changing the world too. Watch them go. So, Linda, I know we're going to have to jump off the line here because otherwise we'll get people going crazy because we're over time. But I want to revisit this, and I want people to understand that I'm not fanatical, and I'm so positive that we can be healthier. There doesn't have to be the instances of cancer that we're seeing because, my friends, it is not environmental. It's your food.
Well put, Mark. Well put. And I think since we're over, my words for this evening would just be following your passion. For everyone, follow your passion and do your research. Don't just accept what's put in front of you, but do your research. Ask the questions and listen for those answers.
Yeah, and do the right thing for you.
Right.
Just do the right thing for you. And it may be, change some things and see how good you feel. And like I said, Linda, I said just do it for 3 weeks. Take out those 7 foods for 3 weeks. I'll post them again on our site. I know it's on mine. Just take them out of your diet for 3 weeks and see the difference. You're going to be bloody amazed. So, my friend, thank you for spending some time with me and allowing me to rant. Get this off my chest. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Mark. You have a great evening.
You too, my dear. Bye now. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night.